video. So thank you to my colleague that just did that. If you need closed captioning, if you kind of go down to the bottom of the Zoom, you should see what's called, I think it's the, what was it called? Like live transcript, I think. And then you can go back and forth between, yes, CC live transcript. So you have that available to you if that is helpful to you. I am going to go ahead and share my screen, and just so we can kind of review our, there we go. Hopefully somebody's getting a call. Okay. Let's see. Can you all see the agenda? Wonderful. So we are going to start off this meeting with our guest, Shayla Collins. I will formally introduce her when we get to that point in the meeting, but she is a local mindfulness facilitator and trainer, and we're going to be offering a series of trainings, mindfulness in real life. And mindfulness can sometimes be off-putting. It can sometimes feel inaccessible. It can feel a little foreign in the sense that, like, what is it? Sometimes, it can be, associated with affluence or different cultures or appropriation from white culture. So we're really going to try to break down mindfulness and talk about what it is and how it can really help in this moment of us being 2+ years into a pandemic on top of years of homelessness crisis. So Shayla has a really amazing approach to this. So I will be introducing her more fully a little bit later. We are in a midterm election year, folks. We got a primary in August and we got a general election in November. And we want to start getting folks really excited about voting and voting rights, and some voting rights that have been restored for folks. So we have some of our colleagues and from the Voting Rights Restoration Coalition that are going to join us and talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about some trainings that the coalition is offering and ways in which we can support you, your staff, and the folks you're working with to really exercise their right to vote. Many, many, many of you, like over 200 of you, have signed up for our very first Public Benefits Are Key training. So Sarah's going to dive into a little bit more of what that series is, how we're approaching this work, and how it's a little bit different in building off of the Public Benefits 101 from years past. We have our board of directors elections today. We've got 2 folks on the slate of candidates that we are renewing. And then we should have plenty of time for member announcements or a little more community building and gathering. So that is our agenda for the day. I would love to invite someone to read our mission statement. And I can't see folks, so I might ask Sarah or Rachel, or just come off mute.
Mission statement. We mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice.
Thank you, Barbara. Love it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, come back to you all. I always feel so disconnected at this point. And I think I saw Shayla come in. There she is. Let's go ahead and highlight her. We're going to pin ya, Shayla. So I think I was just finishing up kind of priming folks about our Mindfulness in Real Life series. But Shayla Collins designs and leads mindfulness and compassion programs in the greater Seattle area. She facilitates sessions for parents of children with disabilities or other special healthcare needs, providers working with children, youth, and families, as well as individuals who have interfaced with the criminal justice system. She's a devoted wife and mother with 2 young boys. She enjoys reading, eating delicious vegetarian cuisine, and antique shopping. Ooh, Shayla, that's another connection between you and I. So that was her official bio. And then what I would love to say is I have had 2 lovely and wonderful interactions with Shayla via Zoom. I'm really excited that she is here to talk a little bit more about what is mindfulness. Mindfulness is something that has been incredibly beneficial to me. I have anxiety disorder. This is something that has really helped me heal in some of my sort of personal anxiety, mental health. It has been a lifesaver. So, and I also, as I was mentioning before, it can feel inaccessible. It can feel, awkward. We don't have time for it. That can be true. Shayla really breaks it down and makes it accessible. So because it can be, a little off-putting or can feel out of reach for folks, I really wanted Shayla to come and really explain how she approaches it and give folks a little bit of a preview. And we are going to be having 2 trainings with Shayla, one in June, another in July. We're going to throw those registration links into the chat for folks and share them out. But the first one is really going to focus on just a moment to pause, kind of develop a little bit of a relationship with mindfulness, understand it a little bit and actually just have a moment for yourself. And then that second training in July, Shayla's going to provide us with some techniques and tips how to take this into the field to actually work with our clients, our colleagues. So Shayla, happy to have you here. Please, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Happy Friday, Junior, everybody. We're almost there. We're in this together, right? I'm honored to be here. And I'd like Miss Jody said, I just wanted to share the way in which I approach mindfulness, because everything Miss Jody said was completely true. When I first was introduced to it, I said, what are you guys trying to have me doing here? And then for quite some time, as I engaged in mindfulness, I felt like because it didn't look like my mindfulness didn't look like the people's mindfulness who were teaching me, that I wasn't mindful enough. So it took me years to get my confidence. And when I started presenting mindfulness sessions, I wanted to do it in a way that reflected that our mindfulness is already in us. We already have certain practices. We already have certain things that we do to nourish ourselves. And so my goal for hanging out with you all is just to help percolate that to the surface, because it's already in you. I won't be teaching you anything new. I will hopefully be sharing with you my experience and how I use mindfulness and allow what you already have in you to come up. Does that sound good so far? We can party? All right. And so is it okay if I share my screen? I have a very brief presentation today. Let me hit the right button. Thank you. And I want you all to know that there's nothing that tests your mindfulness like technology. We can all agree on that. All righty, there we go. And so this is the introduction to what I look forward to sharing with you in June and July. It's what I call mindfulness in real life. And we'll keep going and I'll share more. But you need to know when you're hanging out with me, first and foremost, everything that we'll be doing is an invitation. All righty. Nothing is required. Nothing is something that I feel you have to be doing. Please at all times do what is best for you. All righty. Whether your cameras on or your cameras are off, that's up to you. You know why? Because your mindfulness is your business, not mine. First and foremost, I always like for people to be as comfortable as they can in their space with me. So I encourage, as you can see, blankets, fuzzy robes, food, drink, dim your lights, loved one candles, plants, pets, stuffed animals. I've seen turtles, you know what I mean? I've seen spouses, whatever you want to bring, I'm completely open to. Paper and pen is not required. I'm old school. I always have to have my handy dandy notebook with me and a pen. So if that works for how you roll, please do so. And alter anything that I say to fit your needs. I will give certain prompts during the practices that I share. And if you're feeling like that prompt isn't resonating with you, see if there's a way that you can make it resonate for you. But if not, throw it out. And I'll give that example in one of the practices, the short practices that I look forward to sharing with you all today. And I always like for the sessions to be interactive. I even get tired of hearing my voice. I like to hear other people. And so participation is very much appreciated, but it's always optional. I support the use of emojis, the chat box, unmute, tell me you got a question. Just make sure I'm delivering it in a way that you need, and just let me know and give me that feedback. I'm always open. Okay, well, my mouse isn't showing up for me now. You know how that works, everybody. I told you that there is nothing that tests your mindfulness like technology. Here we go. And so what is mindfulness? The definition that I use is that mindfulness is an awareness of the present moment, including thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations without judgment. Okay, and that without judgment, that's a piece that takes a lot of practice. And that's what we hope to be bringing to the surface, is that who you are and what you're doing doesn't need to be judged. It needs to be noticed. And if there are things that you would like to adjust, that's my grandma's favorite word, not change or improve, adjust, then hopefully you're being able to be in the present moment and support that. But I use this definition, and it's the one that I came up with based upon the others that I saw. I highly encourage you, as you get more comfortable, to come up with a definition that works for you. Again, this is very, very personal. My mother's definition, I want you all to know I'm born and raised in Seattle. This is all I know. My mom went to church in the CD, and she's Christian. And so when I got into mindfulness in a very difficult time in my life, I talked to my mom. We were in the kitchen, and I said, "Hey, Mom, I'm doing a mindfulness class." And she looked over her classes. You all know what I mean. And she said, "What is that?" And so I cleared my throat. I gave her my sexy voice. I read the definition that I had at the time, which was close to this one. And I'm going to share with you her exact verbiage. And again, alter anything I say to fit your needs. Her exact verbiage to me when I told her the definition and she repeated in her mind what it meant to her was, "You mean when your head and your ass are in the same place at the same time?" Yes, Mom, I guess that's what I mean. So if that works for you. And so that was her relation to mindfulness. Again, I share that with you all so that you can feel comfortable coming up with a definition for yourself. Again, because this is already in you. And in addition to that, I want you to feel comfortable when we're engaging, and over time, sharing how you interpret things, how things resonate for you. One thing about doing mindfulness is that it's in community when we're together. And so I would love to honor the wisdom on the call. This is reciprocal, and I learn from you all, okay? I don't consider myself a mindfulness teacher. That's just too highfalutin for me. I ain't ready for that. I consider myself a facilitator of mindful conversation. And so I would love to be in conversation with you. Now, what I'd like to also share is what mindfulness is not. And I'm saying necessarily. It is not necessarily done in silence. When is the last time we've had a silent moment? There's buses, light rails, children, dogs, birds, right? But you can still engage in mindfulness in a way that makes sense for you. But we might not have 90 minutes to sit on a silk pillow in the sand with the sun rays coming down and the sage burning all around us. I'm sorry. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, just want to make sure. We have to do it in our real life, where, like I said, where you can hear the trains, you can hear the children, the phone might buzz. And so how do we cultivate our practices within the context of what's really going on? Okay. The type of practices that I'll be sharing with you are reflective practices, where we'll have some time to be introspective and think about how we're feeling. There'll be breath practices where we'll get to engage with our breath and see that connection to the world around us. There are sensory practices where we can kind of tune in to maybe what we smell, what we hear, what we see, what we feel, and touch. And then there will be body practices such as a body scan, where we explore how we feel in different parts of our bodies, knowing that we don't often do that unless we are tuning into a problem, correct? A difficulty, the stuffy nose, the toothache, things like that. Okay. And so now I would like to engage in a practice with you all. It's one of my favorites. And when you hear me say one of my favorites, a lot of my colleagues and people I engage with say, Shayla, you say that about all of them. But no, I'm being serious about this one. This one is my favorite. And so essentially, like the slide says, in this practice, we'll breathe out a little longer than we breathe in. So for example, when the prompt is asking you to inhale, you'll count how long you inhale. And if your count is a 3, that's just the number I use, that's not an expectation. Then your exhale, your breath out would be a count of a 5. So 3 plus 2. So this is one of the places that I said, I would like you all to make sure that you adjust anything that I say, that you make sure you personalize it so it works for you, okay? So you all ready to go on this journey with me? I'm gonna stop sharing if I can't. Well, maybe not, because my mouse won't allow me to stop sharing right now, but that's technology. So anyhow, you all, we'll just keep going. That's what we do in the moment. That's mindfulness. So I'm gonna ask you to go on ahead and get into, thank you. Oh, it works. See, you see what happens when you just let the universe take over? It works. All right. So I invite you all to get into a comfortable position. Remember, like I shared, cameras on, cameras off. It's completely up to you. This is your mindfulness. And so, like I said, we're going to take a deep breath in through our nose, and then a breath out that is a little longer through our mouth, okay? If you're having a stuffy nose or something, just keep breathing, please, on this call. No medical emergencies. Do whatever you got to do to stay alive. All righty. So feel free to lower your gaze. Keep your eyes open or keep them closed. It's whatever you'd like. We're going to engage in +2 breathing. And in this practice, the first step is noticing our breath. Breathe in and breathe out at your own pace. Notice your breath. Notice breathing in and breathing out. With your next breath, see if you can take a deep breath that expands your chest and your belly. Try taking a few deep belly breaths. Next, count how many seconds you breathe in for. And do this very gently, 2 or 3 times. Now, when you exhale, add 2 seconds to your out breath, making your breath out a little longer than your breath in. Breathe in and count. Then breathe out and count, adding 2 more seconds. Your mind may wander to other things. Remember, this is completely natural. Simply notice it and gently return to your breathing and your counting. Breathe in and count, and then breathe out and count, adding 2 more seconds. And then lastly, as our time comes to a close, take 3 more breath cycles, counting in and counting out. And then whenever you are finished, please slowly and gently return to the Zoom. Thank you all for your time. I don't want to go over mine. That's just a brief intro. I look forward to engaging with you all and learning alongside with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
always feel so relaxed just at your voice. That was really, really lovely and much needed for me. We have a little bit of time.
Okay.
So I just, just a couple minutes. I don't know, you're getting some real good love in the chat. And I just, if anybody has any questions for Shayla, just to help share this with your staff, with your colleagues, the links, Sarah's throwing the links for the trainings back into the chat, but I just want to give a little space and time if somebody has comments or questions for Shayla, if that's okay.
By all means.
Shayla, I wonder, excuse me, this is probably a practice you do in the morning maybe, but with this, since we're all with homelessness, would this be something we would do just before we're going into a meeting, especially if we feel like it might be chaotic, like our lives?
Like our lives, right on.
And maybe afterwards too.
Excellent question. It can be used anytime you need it. And that is the personalized aspect of it. Getting to know yourself and know what you need so that you can have these tools available whenever you need them. And the way that I just presented it was more of a formal practice, but you could do this while you're walking and just say you only have 30 seconds. If you can get a couple of those deeper breaths in, that helps calm your body down. That helps prepare you to be able to enter whatever space you're going to. And that's when you're doing the inhale. That can energize you, and the exhale can calm you down. So it's learning what works for you. And whenever you feel like you need it, having that tool in your toolbox.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a really great question in the chat, and I'm going to call it out, asking, are the 2 different training sessions, so the June and the July, are they the same or are they building on each other? And I'll give you my answer, and then Shayla, if you want to build on that, I welcome that. What Shayla and I had talked about was that this first one would really be a little bit more of that space with which we just experienced with Shayla, right? So learning what it is, different ways of doing some mindfulness, but really a moment kind of for ourselves and to get a little bit more comfortable and learning about mindfulness. And then that second training is really then how to take those tools, as she talks about, and what does it actually look like to use them in the field for ourselves, for our colleagues, our clients. So Shayla, please add in there anything that you feel like you need to correct me on there or embellish.
Nothing to correct you. I'll only add this through a quote, and it was a part of my slide, but like I said, my mouse wasn't cooperating. They're going to build on each other, and I think of it from an aspect of a quote by a gentleman named Robert Holden. It says, your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship that you have. And so we hope to engage in our first session with some time for us to get to hang out and get to know ourselves and see how we're feeling and how we're coming. And then use what we've learned and what's already in us to share with the people that we work with in community, in relationships. So your answer was spot on.
Wonderful. I had a thought and then it went out. So, a little more practice around that mindfulness, I guess, for Jody Marie, but
For all of us, we're all doing it.
You're getting a request to repeat your mom's definition again, if allowed.
Yeah, more than welcome to. And she said it's when your head and your ass are in the same place at the same time. And she had on a muumuu and she's short. So after she did it, she just walked away. So it looks like she was gliding away, like it was celestial or magical. She was so proud of herself. I want you all to know that.
Wonderful. Shayla, I can't thank you enough for coming and giving us a little preview and a little intro. My thought did come back to me. And what I wanted to share with you all was, Allison, Sarah, Rachel, and I have really approached this conversation with Shayla, thinking of this in terms of, yes, self-care, but I'm really coming to dislike that term more and more and more. I feel like it doesn't really, puts that responsibility back on an individual with so many things, already on our plate, and doesn't really hold systems, programs accountable. So we are really thinking this is both self-care and community care. And this is, yes, thank you, Allison. As part of what we're hearing from you all, we've done a few different training inquiry surveys over the past, 2 to 3 years, some quite recent, some going back to, 2019, I think. And this falls really into that space of a lot of what you all are asking for. So register, share those links out. We'll be sharing them as well. Shayla, thank you so much. Look forward to spending more time with you, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. Same to you all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Thanks, folks. I hope that was helpful, interesting, useful, maybe new. We'll take the criticism too if it was uncomfortable, because that's going to help us as we move forward with more trainings. I can give, some of that feedback to Shayla before we move into those trainings. So, as always, we welcome it all, the good and the bad. We're sitting with it all. I am going to transition us to our next section. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about voter rights, voter registration. It's a midterm election. I am really, really excited to have with us here our colleagues from the Voting Rights Restoration Coalition, Anthony Plankenship from the ACLU of Washington, and Kelly Olsen from Civil Survival. They are part of the steering and leads of the Voter Rights Restoration Coalition. And this coalition is doing amazing work around restoring voting rights. And so we hit the 1-year anniversary back on April 7th of the law that restores voting rights in Washington for folks that have past felonies. And the coalition the Voting Coalition put on a really, really amazing celebration of that. And Allison and I were able to join, and it just really got us excited about our voter registration work and the work that we've been doing for folks experiencing homelessness. And so Anthony and Kelly were really kind to come and just share with you all a little bit of work at the coalition, a little bit about the the law, why voting matters, and their experience in terms of doing this work with the wider community. So, and then anything else the two of you want to talk about. That was just a little bit of a guide, but take it away in any way you want. So welcome.
Well, welcome everyone. Hi, I am Anthony Plankenship, someone that's been directly impacted by the legal system. And as Jody said, I work for the ACLU of Washington. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm gonna kick it over to Kelly to do an introduction. And I think we're going to start with a video. Is that right, Kelly? So I'll allow you to cue that up.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you for that lovely intro, Jody. So yeah, as was said, I'm Kelly Olsen. I'm the policy manager at the Civil Survival Project and also directly impacted by the justice system and formerly incarcerated. So this work is really important to me, as well as the work that you guys do around homelessness as something that has been a struggle, having a criminal background and trying to secure housing. But I do want to open with a video that kind of gets to Jody's point. We shared this at the celebration. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll see if I can do it right the first time, which has not been my, let's see. Okay, can you guys see an orange screen? You see an orange screen?
Yep.
Yep, you're
Okay.
looking good, Kelly.
Thank you. And was there sound? It's
Yep.
really quick. I just want to double check. Okay. Me.
For me, the freedom to vote means the opportunity to shape a better future for my nieces and nephews.
For me, having the right to vote means I'm a member of our community again, and I can actually help change for the better.
For me, having the freedom to vote means I matter.
For me, the right to vote means that I now have a say in the decisions that are made about me and that directly affect me and my community.
What voting means to me is responsibility. I am a shareholder, and with my vote, I have the responsibility to determine the future of our community.
Freedom to vote means that I can have a voice in my community for a better community.
Having my freedom to vote means that all those years that I spent in the military defending the rights for you folks and having it back myself meant something.
For me, having the freedom to vote means I have a voice in our democracy. It means that I can be part of shaping our future. It means that I am part of the collective power that determines which laws and policymakers govern me.
Being restored my right to vote means that I can help shape the future that my children will be forced to live in this society.
For me, having the freedom to vote means using my voice to take my power back.
For me, having the freedom to vote means that I have a say in what happens around me, not just for myself, but for all the incarcerated individuals coming behind me.
For me, the freedom to vote means that I can envision a meaningful future and take action.
Made it to the top.
Okay, thank you. We thought that that would be a great opening to kind of this session and kick off why it's important to vote. You know, Anthony and I are just a couple of people. There's a whole group of people behind us and in front of us that I think have helped pave the way to where we've gotten. Anthony and I didn't coordinate super well who was going to share what, so we might be going back and forth a little bit, but I'll just share a little bit of history of the Voting Rights Coalition. It started a couple of years ago, and also I'll go back just a little bit further. It used to be that in order to have your right to vote, restored, you had to pay off all of your legal finance. In addition to being not in community custody, you also had to have all your legal financial obligations paid off, which can be a lot. A few years ago, it was changed so that you just needed to be making payments on your legal financial obligations, and you did not have to completely have them paid off. But those who were on community custody, who were out in our community, who were our neighbors, who were working, paying their taxes, were still did not have the ability to vote until they were completely done with community custody. So what this bill did was create really kind of a clear, bright line. So essentially anybody who is outside of the prison walls has their right to vote back. It's not tied to any fees or fines or anything like that. They just immediately have their right to vote restored. And so, like I said, we ran this bill for a couple of years. In 2020, we had the bill and the coalition going, and it essentially died on the Senate floor. It was a pretty painful death. It's amazing, just some of the rhetoric that was used on the floor to defeat this bill. And there's really no tie to public safety and the right to vote, right? If you go back even further, the reason the right to vote was taken away is rooted in racism and to suppress the vote in general. And so, ultimately, we don't think the right to vote should be taken away. And there are 2 states, Maine and Vermont, that do not take away the right to vote. Ultimately, we would like to be able to do that. We don't. It's a little more complicated. And so it's something that the coalition is still meeting on and still wants to pursue. We know that there needs to be more political will to be able to pass that in our state, or possibly at the federal level would also help with this. So we came back in 2021, we regrouped as a coalition, we kept meeting the entire year. We did a lot more stakeholder engagement and reaching out to our legislators, and really getting directly impacted voices involved. It also really helped that our prime sponsor was Representative Tara Simmons, who is formerly incarcerated. So I think having her as a messenger to help us fight really helped. We also had a bipartisan co-sponsor. So we had a Republican co-sponsor who also believes the right to vote shouldn't be taken away. And so I think that bipartisan support helped as well. We had our leadership team was made up of people who are formerly incarcerated or justice involved. One of our main leaders is somebody by the name of Cyril Walrond, who's currently incarcerated, although he has a hearing next week to possibly get out. So we're excited about that. But he was part of the Black Prisoners Caucus at Stafford Creek. And he helped us really kind of shape our values and get grounded and, in kind of what the mission was of the coalition, that this was really about undoing racism. And I think I'll kick it over to Anthony for a little bit to share some thoughts as well.
Yeah, so I came on after the defeat the first time around, and I was someone who was directly impacted by this because I was still on supervision, and so, but by the time now I am not on supervision. So when this actually kicked in, I was actually able to vote for the first time last year, and I hadn't voted before. So it was my first time voting in, and really like the opportunity to fight for it, to get it back, I think really drove that, and also feeling so much like you're no longer a citizen, you're a second-class citizen, or and you go in prison, it's like you're told what to do all the time, right? You have very limited choices. When you get out, these choices or this mindset, still follows you. the process of being able to vote, of being able to have that freedom to vote, was definitely really important. So for me, and I'm just starting with my personal story of like the trauma of like losing everything, going to prison. I literally lost my voice at one point. I was like, I would stutter. I couldn't talk. I had like really foggy brain for years, and so through the process of like developing myself and learning about myself, and Kelly dragged me along and was like, this is what you're going to do, really helped. And I think part of what we try to do is keep paying that forward. So as Kelly said, like what are the real stipulations of like being able to vote as a felon? Before it was like you had all of these stipulations, right? You had to pay off your the debtor's prison, and you had to no longer be on supervision. Well, it's pretty simple. It's like if you have a misdemeanor and you're in jail, you can vote. Like that's always been the case, right? If you have a juvenile conviction, you can vote. If you finish your prison sentence and so you are out of the gate, you can wear your own clothes. The day you can wear your own clothes, you can vote. Any of those court debt that you actually owe, none of that's going to be held over your head and potentially take away your right to vote. And so it's very simple. As soon as you get out, you have the ability to vote. At least what that gives you is your citizenship back, right? It gives you that, and I want to use that term very loosely, because, but as soon as you get out, you're able to vote. And so this really impacted more than, we're estimating more than 20,000 people. We estimate about 26,000 people. But I do have to say, we have a colleague who didn't know she could vote. Somebody in our, voting rights restoration, she actually spoke first, and in that video. And she didn't know she could vote for 4 years, after, because what they do is they tell you, this is what we're taking away from you, right? All these things. They never tell you you're getting it back, right? And so how many people out there actually have, more than those 26,000 people? There's a lot of people with felonies in the United States, or in the United States, in Washington State, and when you start disenfranchising people, criminally disenfranchising people, it impacts them, it impacts their family, because they're less likely to vote, and they're less likely to want to re-engage in that system afterwards, right? Because of the trauma, because of the pain of incarceration. And so, we see this as a stepping stone. And I want to get into, as Jody, said, was like really excited about, the future and what does the future hold. And so that's where we were, to getting to where we're trying to go, to where everybody, including people in prison, are going to be able to vote. We just got, the work didn't stop with once the law was enacted. This year we actually fought and won, we got a $2.5 million basically, grant to auditors to be able to create a voting in jail process, right? And that is huge. That is huge. And so it shows like a commitment from, the state of Washington. Says like, hey, we're going to try to figure out, everybody in jail can vote. How can we get them, back? How can we get them into that, back into, our democracy, and actually voting and understanding and, being civically engaged. So that was one step, right? That's one step towards moving to what we're trying to accomplish. Our next step, what we're trying to also do it simultaneously, is implement this, right? Let people know, like, shout from rooftops that people, now have the right to vote. And how that looks like, we got a $75,000 grant from the Seattle Foundation. We're using part of this for communications, which Jody and Allison, thank you all so much for being a part of our communications plan. We're using targeted Facebook ads, we're doing outreach to, we're gonna hopefully have some bus ads and stuff like that, just to randomly let people know, like, hey, you can vote back. But I think in the same vein of how we restored this right with the leadership of people that have been directly impacted, we also want to bring more leaders into this work. And so we're creating a Credit Messenger program, which basically is like, if you've been directly impacted, and we kind of have it really, really basic: jail, prison, doesn't matter, you've been directly impacted, you can apply for this fellowship, and you'd be placed in an organization like Coalition of Homelessness. And thank you all so much. But you would be placed in an organization, and you would use their resources and their mission and their mentorship to help let people know that they have the right to vote. And so we're putting on a month-long training for 10 individuals. And that starts in June. That'll go, this whole program will go until November. The whole goal of it is to get people registered to vote. Hopefully, because we have, amazing partners, we're going to be tracking, how many people, registered, how many people actually voted, how they voted, all of that good stuff that the, van could, tell us. And our hope is, we're having it's a low barrier process. And so people, we're really hoping, that, for instance, Coalition on Homelessness, because you guys are doing so much street outreach, right? Having someone who can go, it's another person who can go out there, tell their story, be in community, and show, like, and have somebody out there that can go walk, to those places with you all. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you all for the training that you're going to be putting on around trauma-informed methodology, as well as, how to actually do, street outreach and all that kind of stuff, because it is a really important part, and so we're really trying to get people back into our democracy. I'm going to kick it back over to Kelly because I've been talking. But I do want to say, the partnership that we've had, with Coalition on Homelessness this whole time has been amazing. Thank you, Allison. I know prior to Jody attending, you were heavily involved in this, and we don't get to see you all that much, but appreciate that. Jody, thank you so much for your leadership in this too. We really couldn't do a lot of these things without your support, as well as your voice, right? Because you guys have a unique voice in this, because, people that are unhoused are, directly, a lot of them can't get housing. A lot of them, criminalizing homelessness in itself, seems to be a trend in so many places. So thank you for that. I'm gonna kick it back over to Kelly. Any last thoughts and comments?
Yeah, I think you said it all well. Just kind of wanted to emphasize, one of the points that Anthony made that I think is so important about this education campaign is that there's been so much misinformation out there about felony disenfranchisement, myself included. And as I mentioned, there was a win a couple of years ago where you didn't have to pay off your LFOs, but you had to be making payments on them. So there was also this fear that, like, if you missed a payment, could they come after you because you went and voted? And I know personally, kind of Anthony talked about coming out of prison and kind of being in a brain fog and not having his voice. It took me 10 years to get involved in this work as an advocate, because there's so much shame that comes along with, like, trying to fight for yourself as somebody who has, you know, essentially committed a wrong or committed a crime, you know, forgetting all the trauma that we've been through and everything else, there still is this shame that comes around trying to fight for our rights just to be treated like a human being. And so it took me a really long time to recognize that I am still human. You know, I still did, you know, there's just seeing the humanity in each other. So even though the bill just, we had a hard time getting an exact number from DOC. It's somewhere between 20 to 25,000 people that technically get their vote right. But we believe there's a lot more people out there that don't realize that they have their rights to vote prior to this bill passing. And, you know, I know, you know, myself too, knowing that I still had payments to be made, I felt a little uncomfortable even registering to vote. And so I think that's why this education campaign is so important, is because of the amount of misinformation that was out there. And I was just trying to read what was in the chat. And yes, Brianna is great. So yeah, I don't think that I have too much more. I don't know if there's questions. I don't know. I think our time is up at 10, but just we'll open it up or kick it back to Jody.
First, thank you both so much. That was just hugely informational and so important, all the information you shared, and thank you for sharing your personal stories. As both Kelly and Anthony talked about, like there's sadly a very deep connection between homelessness and criminal legal and losing rights, as we all know on this call. And this is why I wanted to have Anthony and Kelly here to really highlight and talk about why we need all of you on this call to help us spread this message, right? Like the Voting Coalition is doing a lot of work, as Anthony mentioned, in terms of, you know, the Credible Messenger program, the ads, the bus ads, you know, but we are also needing to have champions in community, right, to receive our credible messengers, to receive, you know, the coalition has for years done used volunteers to do voter registration, and so we're wanting to continue that work, and we're still navigating the pandemic and the safety and all of that, and we're being mindful of that, but we really, you know, both Anthony and Kelly clearly stated there's a lot of folks that just don't know that they have this right and that they can participate in our democracy, and we need to help, you know, get that word out so folks can make that choice to step back in. We do have a couple minutes if folks have any comments or questions for Anthony or Kelly related to voting rights or the work of the coalition. We do have one comment saying civil survival gave me permission to step out of that shame and changed life with lobbying. So shout out to civil survival. Yeah.
I'm gonna try and find the article now. I'm curious if anybody else found it, but I was noticing the comment by Amy working with Brianne about municipal laws on criminalizing homelessness across the state. I'm curious if you guys probably did since you're in this business, but I think Edmonds just passed something recent. I was trying to find the article really quick, but that it's going to make it a misdemeanor, and like they want to put you on a bus. And I don't know. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't know the details. I was trying to find the stuff, but it just made me sick to my stomach and really scares me.
Yeah, well, Kelly, you are correct. And actually, Allison and Sarah did a lot of work with a couple of the Edmonds City Council members and Representative Strom Peterson trying to bring out voice in opposition of that. And maybe when we're done here, I'll let Allison give a short little response to that. But I did want to just mention that we, the Coalition on Homelessness, in partnership with Urban League, Judah Med, who's also part of the Voting Rights Restoration Coalition, we are going to host a training for providers. So if you are interested in just knowing more, being more comfortable, having these conversations, understanding the law, understanding how folks without a home can vote because they can, and how they can access that, we are hosting that training in July 12th, I believe. And this is a way for you to just, and your staff, be really a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more practiced in having those conversations. We can help provide a lot of information. The Coalition on Homelessness has a lot of really great resources about helping folks without a traditional address or IDs, and how they can actually register and get to vote. And then we're also working with King County Elections on some materials as well. So please share that out. This should be really a really great training to help folks that you're just talking with and have materials available. And so we can really share that information. And then we're going to do it again around the general election. So the idea is we're going to really focus on that primary, and then we'll repeat again at the general election. So Allison, if you want to give a quick update on the Edmonds, and then we will say a final thank you to Kelly and Allison, Anthony, sorry.
Thanks, Jody. Well, Kelly is absolutely right. The city of Edmonds, as Representative Strom Peterson put it, is no longer the friendliest city on the Puget Sound. Obviously, it is completely unreasonable and cruel to attempt to outlaw people's existence, and that is what those kinds of laws do. But it's also a really important reminder for us that, frankly, the reason this happened is that people who believe that this is acceptable and appropriate lawmaking got elected to the Edmonds City Council. And there were more of them than the folks who believe that this law should not have been passed. I'm hopeful that this is an opportunity for us to think together, you all in your programs and agencies, and us in the Coalition on Homelessness and in the Voting Rights Restoration Coalition, about how do we talk about these issues in a way that doesn't just depress and dishearten people to feel that lack of seeing other human beings as human beings, but instead inspires people. I saw your comment, Amy, and in fact, actually the city council members who supported this did outnumber the city council members who opposed or even questioned it. And that is the result of the most recent election in Edmonds. But laws can be changed and different people can get elected. And it's also completely appropriate to let elected officials know that this is the kind of law that does nothing to help people not experience homelessness and not suffer in public spaces. It actually makes it harder for people to get housing and for them to have anything better, anywhere better to stay than in public spaces. I think people see voting rights in a lot of different ways. I love the montage that you shared. I think it would be really, really interesting to hear from people who are currently experiencing homelessness about this. You know, one of the realities that we all deal with is people are literally in survival mode. So sometimes something that seems abstract, like getting your voting rights back, is not going to be at the top of people's lists. And we understand that, but that's also where the power of working through our member organizations and all of you all on this call really helps, because you're in genuine relationship with and conversation with the folks whom you know. And that is part of what it takes, I think, for people not only to counter misinformation, but to counter the stigma and shame that Kelly and Anthony spoke of so honestly and heartbreakingly. That's part of the work that we do. It's not as simple as filling out a form. It really is about the conversation that makes someone think that maybe they do want to take that step and make it a priority. And it's our job to let folks know that it actually has become way simpler thanks to the incredible advocacy and persistence of this group. So I am super excited. I will say this, the Coalition on Homelessness helped people experiencing homelessness register to vote for 10 years before any outside entity gave us a dime to support that work. Now, there thankfully are more and more people who see it as important and necessary, and we're thrilled to be part of the Voter Education Fund. But that fund is really not about the advocacy. So the Washington Voting Rights Restoration Coalition is for us the perfect partnership, because we don't only want to help people register, we also, as Anthony said, want to make sure that we are bringing in everyone. So I'm just thrilled. I thank you so much, Jody, for your work, Anthony and Kelly for making the time to be with us. Every time I hear you, I just think this is the conversation that we're really having in a lot of different ways. This is about democracy. Do people count? Do people matter? We know they do. So let's do the things that help them actually help to shape this community, whether it's in Edmonds or here in King County. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Anthony, Kelly, thank you so much for taking time and sharing just all your good work, your experiences, and helping to inspire and invigorate our membership. Super appreciated. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you soon enough. So thank you, Sarah, for reminding me that I totally skipped over what I was supposed to do at the beginning of this meeting, which was we want to thank our frontline staff for the incredible hard work that they do day in and day out, not just with, you know, the trainings that help support you in your health and your well-being, but with a little treat. And so similar to last year, for those of you that may remember, we are going to provide frontline staff with a little e-gift card for a very sweet treat from a local BIPOC-owned bakery. They do kind of your traditional cookie, and then for those of us that have dietary needs, they do vegan and gluten-free, and I have had their gluten-free cookies. They're delicious. So I can only assume the regular cookies are too, because usually gluten-free don't really cut the mustard, you know. We've got, Sarah dropped the form in the chat, so please share this with your direct staff. We just kind of need to know where to send it, name, organization, title, and we are gonna close it next week. So make sure you share that out widely with folks. Typically, we would have done this with at registration, but well, we needed a little more time this month, so we're taking it. But I really, really, really want to, you know, say thank you. I think to your good point, Allison, it's really hard, and sometimes we focus on that and we lose sight of the fact that we show up every day in community and we help each other and we help other people, you know, try to get out of that survival mode, get to that thriving, connect with each other again. And that is that humanity that brings us back into the fold with each other. So thank you for all your good work and showing up every day. And I don't know if Alice and you or Sarah want to give a little thank you as well, but thank you all.
How could we not? How could we not take a chance to say thank you? I'm so thrilled that you all figured out a way to do this. I have had these cookies and I have met the proprietor, and you just couldn't find a more lovely, delightful, wonderful man. Also, the cookies are fabulous. And I really appreciated hearing from a few people who were so pleased that that there's an opportunity to take time with Shayla. I think, you know, we are constantly asking ourselves, what can we do that is supportive of the sector as a whole? One of the things that we're going to be talking about is wages, since that is a really important part of people being able to support themselves and their families. But I also think that we'll be trying to have some opportunities to gather in a COVID appropriate outdoor way during the warmer months so that we can get a little bit of the sweetness that comes from being in person in community with each other. So look for those opportunities coming up as well. Thanks.
All right, we are going to, I'm going to pass it over to Sarah to talk about our public benefits or keep it. Oh, Kevin, did you have a question? I saw the hand go up.
Yeah, sorry. I was just, do we submit one for each of our frontline workers in their name for that cookie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that would be great. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the clarifying question. Sarah, the floor is yours for public benefits or key.
Great. Thank you, Jody. Sarah Robbins, policy manager here at the coalition, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our upcoming training series called Public Benefits Are Key. So a little bit of history and context. The coalition has been doing public benefits trainings for many years now. I don't know when we started them, but my background is I used to be a public benefits attorney at Solid Ground, where I helped people get on public benefits and represented people in administrative hearings, and also did advocacy and policy work around public benefits. So I used to be one of the people that did Public Benefits 101 training. And the first time we did the training in person, we had over 100 people show up, which was not surprising to me as someone that worked in this field for many years. Public benefits can be complicated and confusing, and there's lots of boxes to check, and you get lots of notices, and they often contradict each other, and it's just a confusing process. So the Public Benefits 101 was meant to give frontline staff information about how you can best help your clients both access and get on benefits, but also how can you help clients stay on benefits. And here at the coalition, we really deeply believe that getting people connected to benefits and having people be able to maintain their benefits is really a key step in people getting stability and ultimately exiting homelessness. It's much easier for folks to get into housing if they have an income. They can access programs like the Housing and Essential Needs program potentially to get housing and stability. So this is why we have a focus on public benefits. So we are we have started a new partnership with Reach and with Solid Ground. And trainings is going to be one component of this partnership. The other parts of this partnership, in addition to trainings, we will be through Solid Ground offering technical assistance. We're calling it Ask a Lawyer, for case managers to be able to contact benefits attorneys directly to talk through specific scenarios, get direct help with clients that you're working on, ask questions, and then if needed, the attorneys are available to take on a case for full representation or advice and counsel with the client directly, whichever is the more appropriate level of assistance. The other piece of this is that there will be some on the ground field work happening through the coalition and with REACH to have a benefit specialist that will be working with folks that are unhoused, helping people navigate accessing and maintaining their benefits. Our initial plan for the training is we're going to be offering 3 different trainings, and they will be on sort of a repeat cycle. So the first of those is on ABD and HEN. The registration link, Rachel just dropped the registration link for that first one in the chat. And the ABD and HEN is really going to be a practical, what are the requirements for ABD and HEN? How do you get people on? How you can help your clients get on, tips and tricks, very practical. What are the things that the lawyers know that direct service providers need to know in navigating that system? The second training will be focused on Tanf and Workfirst. And this will again be a very practical how to work with families to get them on TANF benefits, keep TANF benefits. If you have clients that have been on TANF for a long time and might have reached, think that they've reached a time limit and can no longer access benefits, it might be that they still do qualify. And then yes, all of the links will be available. They will all be on our website. I know the ABD and HEN one is on our website right now, and the others will be up on our website soon if they're not already up there. And the Workfirst component of this is really for clients that are, if you have clients that are on TANF and they're required to do Workfirst, what are their rights and what are the resources that are available to people doing Workfirst? When I used to do this training, I would also do this training for TANF recipients. So we partnered with a couple of life skills classes for folks that were receiving TANF benefits. And when I would go through, like, if you're participating in Workfirst, what are some of the resources and things that you are entitled to? People were shocked. People would say, but my case manager told me I couldn't get that. My case manager said I could only get this much of a gas voucher, or I could only get this much of, work materials. And, it was really about arming people with the laws and the policies and the, where is this information online that people can take to DSHS and say, wait a minute, you said I couldn't get this, but it turns out that the policy actually says I should be able to get it. So really giving people practical information. The third training is going to be on the intersection of Medicaid and Medicare. So I know that with many of you are working with a population that is aging and is eligible and become eligible for Social Security, either because of disability or at age 65, and people also become eligible for Medicare. And the intersection there can be super complicated. So we are going to try to break down what does, how can clients access the highest level of benefits when they are on both Medicaid and Medicare. So that will cover Medicare Savings Program, some of the advocacy that we're doing around the Medicare Savings Program, and then around spend down. So when people have an income that's higher than the Medicaid limits. How can you best help your clients with that spend down process? It can be super complicated. And so we will be doing these 3, and then we will be repeating them in the months after. So if somebody misses it the first time, I mean, one, it will be recorded, but also we will be repeating these. And then we're open to feedback either ahead of time or after these trainings, if there are other public benefits programs that folks, you know, really have trouble with and want information, we're happy to adjust our training series as well going forward. So that's our public benefits are key. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, feel free to reach out to any of us if you do have questions or feedback, or there are other public benefits trainings that you want to see. We are also working on finding a trainer to do federal Social Security training. So we hope to incorporate that as part of our training series as well.
Awesome. And I will just add, if there's anybody on the call that's a little bit more on my end of the spectrum around public benefits, where this is new to you as a nurse, this wasn't anything that I ever really worked with folks around. Share widely, even if this isn't really in your wheelhouse, just let folks know. We have 250 people registered for that training next week. So this is a need that folks desperately need, and information we need to get out there. There's still plenty of room. So there is still room for that May 24th training. But I'm a little floored, like I said, as someone newer to this space, of just how much people are clamoring for this kind of information. So even if it doesn't apply to you or your position, please share widely within your organizations and your cohorts. Allison.
Thanks, Jody. I was listening to Sarah. I so appreciate your saying that, because it's been a long time since I was a direct service provider, and I know how important public benefits are, but it is really complicated and technical. And I think the whole value and beauty of us doing this as part of a project and not as a one-off training here, go away, do your best, but really trying to loop people in, learn, go out and apply, have someone you can ask questions of, come back for the next session. That's what the coalition does that makes me feel like this is actually different than just providing a training. And I want to just note what might go unnoticed otherwise, which is all the advocacy that we collectively did, that Sarah led, to open the DSHS offices back for in-person services. First of all, that advocacy work continues. We need to make sure that people are getting served in a way that works for them. And part of what we're hoping to learn from the 200 plus people who I hope show up next week is, how is it working, whether in person or on the phone or over the internet. But also, this is a cycle that doesn't end. So it really sort of makes me think back to the beginning of this meeting, actually, what Shayla said, that she likes to be in dialogue with people, because Sarah and Jody are working on presenting, along with the benefit legal assistance folks, the information that you all need, but you all and your colleagues are also going to be providing information that we need to do our advocacy well. Because if you show up and you say, this happened to my client, and somebody else says, the same thing happened to my client, all of a sudden we're in a better position to start asking really key, timely questions and figuring out if we need to advocate to make a change or to get the word out about something else, or possibly add to the bill next year.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yes, somebody asked in the chat, but I will just put it out there for everybody. Yes, we will be sharing these links and these trainings often, far, wide. So we are going to transition to our board of director election. So I'm going to hand it back to Sarah to start that section of our agenda.
Great. Thanks, Jody. So the coalition, as a nonprofit entity, or as the IRS 501c3, we are required to have a governing board of directors. And we are also unique, I guess, in that we are also a membership organization. So we have dues paying members as part of our nonprofit structure. And every year we have board elections, and this can either be new members that are joining our board, or current members that are renewing their term. So we our bylaws, our board of directors have 3-year terms. And when our board, when the board members, either new board members or board members that come up for renewal, our member organizations, so organizations that all of you work for that pay dues to the coalition, are voting members of the board of directors. Slate of candidates is what we call it. So this year we have 2 current board members that their terms are up for renewal. And so we are going to introduce both of them with short videos so that you can meet them and learn a little bit about why they're involved in the coalition. Rachel, can you help with those videos?
Hi, my name is Calvin Jones. I'm currently serving as the president of the board of the Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness, and I'm hoping to be renewed for another term. During the day, I work as a product manager at a tech company, but I serve on the board because I believe that housing is a human right, and I want to help us move closer to making that a reality however I can. I really, really, really admire all of the day in and day out work that everyone in our member organizations does. So wanted to take this time to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all the work that you do. And I don't know where we'd be without you.
Hi, my name's Nick. I am currently the treasurer on the Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness Board of Directors. I've served in that capacity for the last year. I've served on the board for about 3 years and am looking to renew my term. I really appreciate the work that I am exposed to on the board, as well as the people. I have an opportunity to help with the financial controls and the fiduciary responsibility for running the organization. I also have exposure to fundraising and recruitment for the board of directors. I participated in the One Night Count and had my hand in a couple of the other community activities. And one of the most important things about being on the board for me is the fact that it gives me exposure to a problem that affects us all and gives me an opportunity to take a hand in finding its solution. I also really, probably the most first and foremost part of it is the people that I work with, both on the board and at the coalition, as well as the service providers. So it's community that makes this work, and I appreciate being a part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. So these are our 2 current board members, Calvin Jones and Nick White, that will be up for renewal on our board. If you work at a member organization, in this afternoon, someone in your organization will be receiving an online ballot to vote yes or no on the slate of candidates. That voting will be open for a week, so until 5 p.m. on May 26th, a week from today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Jody or myself. And then we will also throw the link in the chat if you want to learn more about our board of directors, or how someone, what our board does, or if you or someone that you know might be interested in learning more about our board to potentially join in the future, that will give you some information. So happy to answer any questions if anyone has questions. Great, thank you. I'll turn it back to Jody.
All right. Thanks, folks. So we have quite a bit of time for our member and community announcements and just connection, which is really, really lovely. We have a few from the coalition that we want to share. Partly it's that plug for membership yet again. Might be sounding a little bit like a broken record at this point, but many of you are already members. We are trying to close out our 2022 membership campaign drive. For those of you that work with school-age children, we are starting to get organized and ramp up for our Project Cool. So this is our event every year where we provide school-age kids with backpacks, books, supplies, really getting them starting out right and well suited for the new school year. So that is a benefit of membership. So if you think you're a member, you're not sure, I am happy to have that conversation with you all. So just wanted to plug that. I've sent an email out to a lot of folks that have historically participated in that, looking for the right person. So I'm also open to hearing if you might be the right person, or who might be the right person to talk about Project Cool or membership at your organizations. The other thing we really wanted to share with you was, I don't know how many of you are KUOW listeners, but Soundside did an interview, a 25-minute piece on the encampment sweep at Woodland Park. And this was maybe about a week or so ago. Pretty incredible for a media outlet to do this in depth and length of an interview and a conversation piece on homelessness and sweeps. Our very own Allison Eisinger was interviewed in that piece and really did a phenomenal job of talking about the nuance of solutions to homelessness and unsheltered homelessness. And I really encourage you all to listen to it. I think this is the kind of conversation we need to start having with our wider community, and really starting to shift this narrative. So I know 25 minutes can feel like an eternity, but if you have a commute, throw that link in and save it so you can listen to it. I really feel like this piece did better than any other, and Allison really nailed it in terms of talking about what is incredibly hard and complex in a very straightforward way, and yet not simplifying it and not demonizing, and really highlighting how that particular encampment we can lean into the way that was done. So Allison, I don't know if you want to share anything, your thoughts of what that interview felt like for you and how it felt a little different for you. I know I'm putting you a little bit on the spot there, and I apologize, but.
Well, I thank you very much, Jody. I was not expecting this. I do have the sense that, you know, we're at a point where even some of our friends, I would say, start to use words like intractable, and that makes me very nervous because we know actually that homelessness is not intractable. So I think that we are trying to find new and additional ways to use different systems and communications tools to have conversations. Obviously, the conversations among ourselves with each other are in some ways the foundation for everything else. And I think it's our obligation to be in dialogue, even if we don't agree with them, with people who are in policy and decision-making positions, and to lay out what works and what doesn't, and to do it in a way that people can hear. So I really appreciate any and all feedback if folks do listen to it. But really what I want to say is, all I'm doing is using the opportunity to give voice to what so many of you already say and the conversations that you're already having. So I think we're just going to continue to look for ways, to bring that expertise and knowledge and on the ground experience of both people who have personally experienced homelessness and those who are doing frontline work to inform the public conversation, so that we're not constantly, all the misinformation about voting rights, think about all the misinformation there is about homelessness. Several people said to me, oh, it was good that you highlighted in that interview that actually we do help thousands of people who experience homelessness to get housed every year, because sometimes we forget to say that. So it's just another opportunity, but an unusually long one, I guess, to try to refine our messages. And I consider that to be a total collaborative, coalition-wide group effort. And we're open to all suggestions. We've already heard from people that it might be useful to have some messaging training opportunities. So we'll just keep listening to you. Really appreciate your feedback and input, and we want to lift up your voices as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Allison. I appreciate that extended context around that interview. There is a first annual community barbecue being held by United Way. So we're going to drop just a little bit of information into the chat. It's just a fun community event. I think we're in need of connection with each other in a real outdoor safe kind of way. So if that is of interest, we've got information there for you. And then there is some grant opportunities for food nutrition grants. So if you are in the food meal nutrition program area, maybe take a look to see if any of that applies to you. But mostly I want to open it up for any of you all. If you've got an announcement, an update, if you've got questions for your colleagues, this is kind of an open forum. And I would just give you the friendly reminder that if you do have sort of an ask or an offer, just a good reminder is what is that ask, that offer, who to connect to, what are the parameters, just in terms of what's needed to access that. But this is your time to share with each other, connect with each other, ask each other questions, or follow up on anything that's come up today. So the floor is collectively yours. Or not. I'm loving the irony that we have tons of time for member announcements and updates. And there are a few, and that is okay, as opposed to us cramming it in the last 30 seconds of our meeting. Go, Beatrice, please.
Yeah, this is not an announcement, but it's just to introduce myself a little bit. I'm a Sister of Providence, and we're located in Washington, Oregon, California. And we do a lot of work with the homelessness. So we just want to thank all of you, different agencies, for all that you do. I personally have been involved working in a food bank and a shelter. And now I work volunteer through Christ Our Hope. And we go out on the streets on Wednesday morning for 2 hours. There's about 6 of us. So we know you're all out there, and especially those who are working with the ones in encampment. We're finding a lot of young people doing drugs, selling. I'm 76 years old. I've been involved with social justice a lot. I have learned a lot in the last 6 months, walking the streets of Seattle and the changes that has happened. So I just want to say thank you for all your work, and we collaborate with you and we work with you. So I'm glad I can finally get into this coalition. We've been wanting to do this for quite a while.
Thank you, Beatrice. And we second that there's a lot of folks in need right now in a lot of different ways. And so we really appreciate our colleagues that are out there supporting, helping, connecting. Well, you know, I'm gonna lean back into my public health, healthcare for the homeless days. I'm always happy to give people time back, because if this was an extra 15 minutes that you didn't think you were going to have, that's self-community care, and I will lean into that. But we will also stay on the Zoom call if there are questions, thoughts, if you're percolating on something, or you just want to say hey and see how you're doing, see how other people are doing. But if you need your time back, please take it. Thank you all. Really appreciate you being here. We will stop the recording now, though.